Nej. Nej.
Sweden is on a fast track to disaster.
Nej.
Yes, it's a refugee overload. That's a good word. Sweden is traditionally known as the land of ice hockey, herring, meatballs, and Vikings. In modern times, Swedes pride themselves on their egalitarian humanism, welcome disaffected populations into their country, and provide generous social benefits to their citizens. But what really is the situation in Sweden? What happens when the world's largest welfare state meets a flood of migrants from a foreign culture? Is this an invasion? Why is Sweden today called the rape capital of the world? Sweden is one of the world's least populated countries. 3 decades ago, its birth rate began to fall. Less children means less workers supporting more and more retirees and non-workers living off the giant welfare state they created. What to do? Cash-strapped Sweden threw open its doors to the world. By 2013, 1 out of every 6 people living in Sweden had been born in a foreign country. In 2015, this number exploded as Swedes embraced the mass Middle Eastern migration efforts pushed by Angela Merkel and the EU. From 2015 to 2016, as many as 250,000 Middle Eastern migrants landed in Sweden, according to the Swedish government. Most arrived here in Malmö. At one point, Malmö was taking in more Middle Easterners daily than Ellis Island in its heyday. In all, Sweden took in more Middle Eastern migrants per capita than any other country in the world. In the 2015 migrant crisis, over 1 million migrants overburdened processing centers in border countries, and thousands were simply allowed into the EU without any real vetting whatsoever. 70% of migrants to Sweden were men. Cases of tuberculosis and antibiotic-resistant infection began being reported in record numbers for the first time in generations. Gang violence erupted as existing gangs of Somalis and Iraqis and others squared off against new arrivals, creating turf wars in what are now known as no-go zones, where even police dare not enter. There were over 70 car bombings in 2016, an endless string of shootings, even hand grenades attacks that left children dead. Incidences of rape and sexual assault skyrocketed in Sweden, the overwhelming number being migrant men attacking Swedish women and girls. As soon as we set foot in Sweden, we began asking questions.
Well, if I can ask, you said that most city is safe, but maybe what are some parts that maybe we should make sure we just don't go to? Do you know?
You don't go there. Krupsbeck, you don't go there. You don't nothing to do there. Rosengård, you don't need to go there.
Yeah.
The next day, we took our first steps deeper into Rosengård to see the no-go zone for ourselves. Just 1 day before we arrived in country, we learned that a 16-year-old boy was shot and killed at a bus stop in the Rosengård no-go zone.
Can you at least just tell me some information, like what happened?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what happened, but I think it's about it's between gangs and
What gangs?
The time when the migration crisis really hit Europe was around 2011-2013. As you can see on the chart on screen, in 2013 there were about 300 attacks in Sweden. In 2016 it was 35. Notable incidents, for example this summer when an 8-year-old child was killed when a hand grenade was thrown through the window in the room he was in. That seemed to have been because of a Somali gang fight. Just after New Year, there was a hand grenade attack at a police station. Cars have been blown up by hand grenades, and grenades have even been thrown into random people's gardens. How is this possible? hand grenades are military grade weapons. I mean, this shouldn't be going on in a civilized first world country. This is the kind of thing that happens in Afghanistan or Iraq.
Swedish citizen journalist Josh D. actually stood in the square on New Year's Eve and filmed the attacks with his GoPro. We wanted to find out what drove him to travel there that night, camera in hand, and how the country and the media responded to his footage.
The New Year's Eve in Möllevången, where we are, tends to be chaotic, almost dangerous if you're in the wrong place. Some individuals seem to think it's fun to shoot horizontally instead of vertically.
So what was the police response?
I think mainly what they were aiming to do was to be present, making sure that people don't shoot horizontally. I mean,
But they did.
they did. The police, I would say, gave up. They came out in the newspapers and said that they felt targeted and they felt scared to get out of the cars.
So the police stayed in their cars.
Yeah.
So how did the media respond to the local media here in Sweden, respond to your video?
No, the local newspaper of Malmö, they were standing there from a safe distance, taping towards this direction and showing, therefore, a kind of beautiful, peaceful atmosphere. I have been called racist, anti-Semite. I mean, it's just crazy how prejudiced people have about my intentions and me.
Why would they attack you like that? Why would the local paper not show it? And why would they, in your opinion?
They wanted it to seem like the journalists, the press photographers should not expose themselves to danger. That this is the main reason why they were not standing there with me.
So they don't expose themselves to danger, but then they don't show the story either.
No, not that part of the story.
They cut out the, main part almost.
Yeah, for all those people, that was the main part.
Yeah, I would imagine someone shooting fireworks at me. That's going to be an important part of the night.
And we have, I guess, just like you guys in the US, a pretty contrasted corridor of opinions.
And in society, also in politics, you have also a situation where there are a lot of things that you're not allowed to say. And you have, most of all, I would say, you have a situation where everything is being polarized. Where you have, if you would like to create a situation where you have right-wing fanatics who say all kinds of bizarre things, and then on the other hand you have the multiculturalists who say the opposite things, then you should have a look at the last few years in Sweden, because I think politicians, journalists, and the academia has, whether they know it or not, they have carefully created a situation which is, I would think, on the brink of explosion.
Vet du varför jag är arg? På det här jävla systemet. På det jävla papperssystemet. Varje gång när jag går till sjukhuset, man måste skriva massor med papper. Varför kom jag hit? Varför är det soldater i mitt land och dödar våra barn? Tand mot tand. Öga mot öga. Fattar du inte det?